Hey everybody, welcome to tonight's pour. Tonight's pour is going to be a Hot Wheels themed one. It's also a kind of a special one for me because I'm actually making this one for a buddy of mine. I've known him for over 50 years. Where I grew up, we grew up together in a small town, so we were buddies and we hung out and you know, what's the best word? We hung out a lot. Probably got in a lot of mischief together. A lot of him and a lot of my other friends. Not that he was a bad influence on me at all. He's a really great guy, and I mean he probably did a little bit, but I probably did some stuff. We got some stories I'm not going to go into tonight, but one of the things I remember about Brian, and it's still true today, he still drives them today, is he drives an old Ford pickup, mostly in the 70s. And I was out there a year ago, and I was hanging out with him, and we were driving around, and he was showing me he has a couple properties there in town, and he was showing me, I think he said he had like 15, 16 Ford pickups scattered around all his properties behind his house, and at this property over here, and we got another friend of ours that owns 100 of them or something out. So we went out, and he lives out in the country, so we went out by his house, and it's like a boneyard out there for Ford pickups. So he didn't have as many as Johnny, but he's got a good start. I mean, 16 pickups to me that's a lot of cars. I probably haven't even had 16 different cars in my life. So well, I probably have, but now I'm trying to think. But anyway, so I wanted to do one for him, and I didn't have one in my collection, and so I found this online, and it does have a camper on it, which I'm not too thrilled about, but at least it's a Ford pickup. It's a 79 Ford pickup. So this is what he used to drive. And I remember it's probably been a long time ago, 13, 14 years ago. I was out there and ran into him, and we we're out there for the alumni weekend, which is what I'm going to go out to here on the 30th. So in 10 days, I'm going to go out there for the same event, but this was 14 years ago. They've had it forever. And so we were at the gymnasium there at the college, and we decided to go over to the next town over to get something to eat. So we hopped in his pickup, and I was like, is this the same pickup you had in high school? Because it looked the same, it smelled the same, it looked like the junk in it was the same that was in it back when we used to cruise around. I mean, it was like a time warp, a time capsule. And just as soon as I opened the door, I stepped into 1979 or 1980, around there. It was really weird, but it was more of a joke, but I knew it wasn't the same one, but it sure did look like it. So anyway, that's why I wanted to do a pour for him with this, and I decided to do a mudding one. And so I'm going to do the white background with the mud sprayed. You've probably seen those if you've watched most of my videos. I've done 3 of them. 2 of them have sold. I got one is actually right back here. So I'm going to do this one for him. And I wanted originally to do a combine one for him because his dad and their family actually got hired out to harvest people's crops, and they went all over into different states and stuff around the area. So that was kind of, and Brian helped with it a lot. So that was one of the things I originally wanted to do, but I just couldn't find one. And so it finally hit me, 70 something, this one's a 79, so 79 Ford pickup. That's what he drives. It's what he's always driven. It's like you think of a Ford pickup, you think of Brian. And so anyway, that's what I'm going to do. So all I got to do is mix the paints. I've got my canvas ready, and we can get this thing started, and I can tell you some stories while I'm painting. So let's get to mixing the paint so we can get to storytelling and painting. All right, before we get started on painting, I'm going to show you the paints that I'm using, the brands. And so I'm using raw sienna, and that is fine touch, kind of the master's touch you get from Hobby Lobby. As you can see, I got this one for 74 cents. Then I'm using a red ochre by Master's Touch. And then also with Master's Touch, a burnt umber. And then, of course, as always, my white is Artist Loft white. And then I mix it with Floetrol, which is Flood makes this. Floetrol. Make sure you get the latex based Floetrol. And and then I use a little, and this one's got a little dripped on, but distilled water. I put it in a little ketchup squirt bottle, so I keep that filled. As you can tell, I got a lot of paint on it, and so I put a little distilled water in it to thin it out a little bit to get it more runny, so it'll flow better when you blow on it. So just wanted to show you what the paints I use. A lot of people ask me what brands I use, and so if they watch the video, they can tell which brand they use. And I need to start putting all those things in the description. I just a lot of times it's days later that I actually get the video edited with the finished product, and then I actually sometimes I forget the exact colors that I use. So if I show them, you know. All right, so as always, I level my canvas, make sure it's level. That's pretty level. So naturally I start with my base color, my negative space color that I'm going to use. Now the stories I can tell you with Brian is, while I'm painting this, getting this ready, there's a chunk there I think, is we used to go, one of the things we used to do is we used to go to the theater a lot, the movies, not the theater, a movie theater. We're not that sophisticated. And what's cool about that is I've seen a lot of great classic movies. They're classics now. They were new releases back then. Oh, like, Animal House and Smokey and the Bandit and, stuff like that. Brian and I went to the show. I'm sure there was other guys that went with us as well. But we were always going over there. Oh, we had to go to the next town over, which is Pratt, Kansas. It's about 20 miles. Now, the reason I mention it, and the theater name was the Barron Theater. It's where I saw hundreds and hundreds of movies growing up. The reason I mention that is there's an interesting little thing about the Barron Theater. It is actually mentioned in a Stephen King book. The Stand is the book that it's in, and he mentions, because they were traveling across the country, the characters, and it's been a long time since I've read the book, and I think I saw the TV show, the TV movie of it, and but they were going across the country, and he actually mentions Pratt, Kansas, and the Barron Theater. I can't remember why he mentioned the Barron Theater, but it's in there. It's not something that is like, it's not something that is like, there's that gunk. That they spend a lot of time on you know, things going on in Pratt. For some reason, he just mentions this, and, you know, it's like just a couple pages of the book that's in there, and he mentions a couple other things in there about around that area and stuff. But I was like, that is so cool, because that is a town that I'm familiar with. I lived in that town for a number of years as well later on, and it was just kind of cool. I saw a lot of movies in that theater. Went on a lot of dates in that theater. Took a lot of girls to that theater with me. So it is a special place for me. A lot of memories, I guess you could say. But him and I used to go over and see a lot of movies, and funny thing is, every time we'd leave, whether I was over at his house or he was over at my house, before we leave, our moms would always say, "Be careful." And so that was kind of our joke, that that's our middle name. That's usually what we tell them when we leave. That's my middle name. Be careful. So yeah, and Brian was one of my friends that I kind of really was the first one that I would go on road trips with. So he had some family in other states and stuff, and so I remember going to Oklahoma, down in Oklahoma, and we went over to western Kansas, and you know, it was all over the place. It was more than just around where we lived. It was kind of always interesting to go with Brian and doing stuff like that. So when I do these pours with different colors, especially the same, like these are browns, I always do the darker on the bottom to the lighter. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use a blow dryer to blow this up, but I'm not going to use a blow dryer to do the Dutch pour part of it. Use a straw just because of the pattern it is. It's hard to blow it out like that. So Now, one of the things I do on the other ones is I make tracks like where the tires would be. So I'm going to do that. But what I want to do also is get it darker. And then, of course, you're going to make a mess when you're mudding. You're going to throw paint. You're going to throw mud everywhere, so you're trying not to splatter it too far. I got coasters over here that are still wet, and I did a pour last night. They've been wet for a couple days. I was a little shocked that they're still and I just did it. Darn it. Boy, I shot a piece of brown up there. I'm gonna have to wipe that off. It just makes me mad because it's still wet too. Get that off. Fortunately, it landed in a spot that is not still wet, and it's dry enough that I can wipe it off. Oh, thank goodness. Whew. Well, while I was moving them, I found a couple of red spots from the red paint I was using last night. So, that's probably enough before I get too crazy. Excuse me. So there you have it. Let's see, let me take this truck out and see what it looks like on there. So I have it right, and it's actually brown. I didn't think about that, but I could probably get it right in there. So that's what it would look like on there. So I think that's going to be another good piece. I know he'll appreciate it. And well, all we have to do is wait for this to dry. Hopefully it'll be dry in a couple days, 3 at the most, and then I can resin it, because I just like to get it resin quickly so I have it done and ready for him when I leave. Even though it's going to be 10 days from now, I still would like it done. So, another great Muddin piece. Alright, this one has dried. I've got it taped on the back so that it'll be easy to peel, to pull the droplets that I've hardened from the resin in the morning when I'll be coming in to get this one. And as always, I'm using Pro Marine resin. I have this is a 10 by 20 canvas, so I have 7 ounces of resin, 3.5 the hardener, 3.5 the epoxy. I mixed it for approximately 3 minutes. It was a little shorter than that, but and as always, if you have a different size canvas and you want to know how much resin you should use on it, Resin Calculator. Put that in your search engine. Go to that website. They have a calculator there. All you do is type in the dimensions of your canvas, 12 by 24, 24 by 48, whatever, 8 by 10, 10 by 20, 12 by 12. It'll tell you how many ounces total. It does give you the total amount of resin, so you have to divide that because the resin kits comes with the hardener and the epoxy, so you have half and half, and you have to mix it equally. Now I buy these cups that have the measurements on the side, and one of the measurements, it has multiple different measurements, but one of them that it has is an ounce, the ounce measurement. So I like buying those, so you can just, you don't have to measure it out. You don't have to put it on some people do have ounce scales and stuff like that. I don't like doing that. I just do it by the ounces on the side, and it's been pretty good for me. And I've been resining a ton of stuff here lately. When I first started out, boy, I didn't want to resin anything. I was a little scared of it, a little intimidated by it, only because it was something I had not tried before. And the other was the cost of it. So as I have grown in my craft and started selling pieces, I guess you could say I can afford it now a little bit easier now that I sell them. But the price of these do go up once. If I sold a 10 by 20 canvas this size, I would sell it without resin on it. I would sell it at a price, and then when I resin it, I would usually more than double it. And I would say compared to some really some of these artists out here, these fluid acrylic artists that are kind of are up there a little bit more. I'm pretty cheap compared to, I sell my stuff pretty cheap compared to what they have their prices on their stuff for, but they do have some amazing pieces. I'm not saying I'm equal to their talent, but I do make some pretty good pieces. I just am not in I'm not really in the art community. I live in a rural area. I mean, we live close to Indianapolis, but I'm not in that community to, you know, that I, you know, hobnob with them or whatever, and I don't have my stuff in galleries. I think probably I'm just in the starting stages of trying to try to get into places and have my stuff in places. I do have mine in a shop right now. It's kind of a, I guess you could say, like a consignment type shop, and that is where I'll be doing my classes as well. So they have a couple pieces of mine up in there, and the people at the kind of flea market area that I go to, they've been trying to get me to rent a booth, because they talk to you when you know, and I talk to people. So when I think it was one time I was buying these Hot Wheels, and they're like, "Do you need a receipt?" I'm like, "Yes, it's a write-off." And they're like, "What do you mean it's a write-off?" And so I told them what I do with them. And so I started showing them pictures, and they said, "A lot of people come in here and buy Hot Wheels. You should set up a booth and sell these here." And I haven't yet. I might do it over the winter time, because mostly I do these for festivals. I do festivals and art shows, art craft festivals and stuff like that. And so I don't like to have them in a shop to where I can't go get them, and I feel weird going and getting them all just to do a one-day event for a few hours. So I keep most of them here, but I thought I don't really do that many in the winter time. So maybe I'll rent a booth for 2 or 3, 4 months over the winter and see if it does anything. But I think it's like $110 a month for the booth. So I'd have to sell a couple of them just to make some money. And then, of course, I'm like, well, I go in to look for stuff I can't find, as well as, and I know not everybody's like that, but as well as stuff at a bargain. All right, so here's the car. It's the pickup, 79 Ford pickup. So I'm gonna place it right in here. I think right there is where I want it. Oh, boy, I tell you, right before I resin this, the white was kind of, you could kind of see the canvas texture-ish a little bit, but with this resin on, it just clears that up, and it just looks like, I mean, just an amazing white. So, all right, so this one is for my buddy Brian, my good buddy Brian. As you heard in the earlier, he drives this. He's driven Ford pickups, these old Ford pickups, for as long as I've known him, almost since he can drive, because I knew him before that when we were in grade school together. So I'm actually leaving in 1 week. 1 week from today at this time, I will be out in Kansas, and probably Friday. Tomorrow's Friday, so a week from tomorrow is when I'm gonna. I think him and I are gonna, and maybe a couple other buddies might be going out to get a. There's one restaurant close by that sells a pizza taco. That's all I'm gonna say. It's really good, and so I always try to get. I had one last year with him, and another buddy of ours, and so. That's our plan this year as well. So I'll give this to him on that it'll be a week from tomorrow. So if you like this one, hit the like button. Leave a comment, any type of comment, and I'll try to respond to it. I almost always do, or at least like it. And again, if you like my content, continue to support my channel and subscribe. And again, once again, thanks for watching.